We are starting our journey today in the ancient market town of Marazion, and we are going to hop on the boat which will take us across to St Michael's Mount to visit the historic island, castle and garden. Depending on the tides, you can also walk across to the island, which is a great experience, and we actually walked back on this visit, so keep watching to see the causeway a little later in the video. Once we arrived, we took a moment to enjoy the views the island has to offer. I'm so used to seeing the view from Marazion, it makes a nice change to see it from the other side. We were a bit too early to walk up to the castle, and while we were waiting, we looked around outside of this building, which was the dairy. This is a late Victorian building and was based on the kitchens at Glastonbury Abbey. It was to act as a dairy for the island.
You're ready to do climbing, Daniel? Yeah. Climb up the mountain. How would you hold your own hand?
This well is a key part of the Cornish legend of Jack and the Giant Killer. The giant stole cattle, hens, lambs and pigs and generally terrorised the land. But Jack, who was from Marazion, lay a trap for the giant on the cobbled causeway by digging a hole where the well now lies and covered that hole with branches. He then lured out the giant with a blast on his horn. The giant proceeded to chase after Jack, and in doing so he fell into the hole. It is said that the remains of the giant lie at the bottom of the well, and the giant's stone heart now lies amongst the cobbles. Hey. These cannons were probably installed in the late 18th century, replacing earlier and smaller gun emplacements designed for battle. They were most probably used for ceremonial purposes, such as saluting an important guest or firing on special occasions. The castle and associated buildings were originally built in 1135 and the castle built as a priory church. During the 14th century, the buildings were rebuilt and fortified. St Michael's Mount was the English counterpart to Mont Saint Michel in France, somewhere I hope to visit next year. Mont Saint Michel is, however, much bigger and taller. As we enter the castle and walk into the entrance hall, we learn that during the Mount's time as a priory, this may have been the room where justice was administered to anyone who had committed a less serious crime. This coat of arms was transferred from its original position in the room above during the late Victorian renovations. We now enter Sir John's room. I learned that this room was added as a new kitchen in the mid-16th century. During Victorian renovations, it became a study, and it was not open to the visitors until the 1980s, used as a study up until that time. Apparently, in the evenings, the view from this room is the sun setting over Penzance. The grandfather clock you can see here not only gives the time of day, it also shows when it will be high tide. This is important when on the Mount to know when the causeway will be available to walk on to and from the Mount. We now enter into the library. When this room was first built, it would probably have been as the kitchen for the priory, and it would have been higher with a chimney to release smoke. It was changed in the mid to late 18th century, and as part of this change, ceilings were introduced and a bedroom was built above. This was one of my favourite rooms in the castle. The rosewood gaming table you can see here dates from 1840. We are now entering into the Great Hall, which was used as a dining room right up until the 1950s. In the 16th century, this room was made into the Great Hall that you can see here, and the amazing roof was added. I read that the main timbers in the roof date back to this period. The long table in the room was made in about 1620. Apparently, to get here, it had to be carried up the mount and in through the castle. One side of the table is finished, but the other is not and more rough. The good side would have been kept for guests and special occasions. The top does come away from the legs, which I read helped when bringing it up the mount and in the castle. But also, lifting the top and reversing it resulted in the well-known phrase, turning the tables. The room we enter now is called the smoking room, as it used to be the room where the gentlemen would retire after dining to smoke their cigars. This would have been at some time after the Victorian renovations. As we now head outside, we find ourselves on the roof of the east wing. We are now on the south terrace. The views from here, as you can see, are absolutely stunning. As well as looking out to sea and across to Marazion, you can also look down onto the beautiful terraced and walled gardens. St Michael's Mount is an ancient tidal island, and here you can see the cobbled causeway which you can use to walk to and from the mount during low tide. We walked back on the causeway during our visit today, but it's always nice to walk one way and get the boat the other way if the tides allow it, so you can experience them both. We are now heading into the medieval church of St Michael and All Angels. This church is still used for Sunday services between the end of May and September. The church was first built in 1135 but largely rebuilt in the late 14th century. It was then restored many times during the 17th, 18th, 19th and 20th centuries. We're now in this beautifully decorated room, the Blue Drawing Room. It feels very cosy and homely in here, and this room was designed and furnished in the early 1750s. Queen Victoria sat on this blue sofa that you can see in 1846 during an impromptu visit to St Michael's Mount whilst on holiday on the royal yacht off the coast of Cornwall. The housekeeper at the time showed Queen Victoria and Prince Albert around the castle as the family were not there at the time of the visit. In 2013, the late Queen Elizabeth II and Duke of Edinburgh visited St Michael's Mount, and after lunch and a tour, ended up here in the Blue Drawing Room where they signed the visitors' book. King Charles III also visited the Mount when he was the Duke of Cornwall back in 2010. We're now in the map room, which was added in the late 1780s. There are several maps on display in here, some dating back to the late 16th century. This very clever model of the mount was made out of champagne corks, and it was made by Henry Lee, who was butler to the family in the 1930s. The garrison room would have been the storeroom when it was a priory, and access to it would have been via this spiral staircase.